it's time to just act to prevent it. Get proactive. And on that note, I would like to go to a track. It is called Slave Call by the Ethiopians. Some reggae dub for us.
Right on.
And that was Slave Call by the Ethiopians. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Not too bad. I always like it when you play us some reggae.
It's good for the soul.
Absolutely. I love the reggae.
It's what keeps my soul going in these dark times.
Exactly. We've got a few more years to go through this misery of Stephen Harper's.
Yeah, let's just hope we can do these few more years without any serious wars going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How the
Well,
conservatives
you know what, though? Before we close here tonight, I would like to say that I did read an article recently And without getting into the, there's probably a bigger discussion we could have about the article, but the interesting point in this article was that Thomas Mulcair has come out and said he wants the NDP to be ready for an election by the fall of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, we could talk about how I wish they were ready now, and blah, 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 and all the rest. But I mean, the key to this story...
You can't be ready all the time.
Oh, yeah, that's what we need, right? We need the NDP, the Liberals, the Greens, all these parties to man up and become more functioning, not like the Conservatives in the way they act, but they need to be on guard 365 days a year, always working, always moving towards getting that, finding out who your voters are and all the different things that the Conservatives do and do so well.
Yep.
But the good news here is that there seems to be a really good chance, because there will be 7 provincial elections in 2015, when the next election date would be likely to be called. And rather than changing 7 provincial elections, it looks like it'll probably be easier to switch the federal election and push it back a little bit. So Mulcair is basically saying that it looks like we might have a spring election 2015 rather than a fall election. So we might, I'm sure Stephen Harper will be busy at work and passing everything well before that anyways. But, it's 6 months less to Stephen Harper.
Yeah, his worst is going to happen in the first 2 years, and then he's going to try to buy back everyone's affections in the last couple of years. Basically, I translate what you just said there into Thomas Mulcair has asked his party not to walk into the next election with their pants around their ankles, right?
Right.
So if they could conceivably be in an election earlier spring 2014, they want to be ready for that. So being ready for an election is a good idea. I highly approve of that idea,
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, in fairness to them too, I mean, they have been a party that has ran third for so long, and of course the momentum that they picked up recently, they need to pick up themselves with that as well, and realize that you can't keep running races the way that they have, expecting to be third. Once you have a chance to win, you have to be ready, you have to work, you have to there's a lot of building to do, and I guess the important part here too is, again, to say to people, get involved with your local riding association, even if it's not the NDP. I mean, I hope we're not talking to Conservatives here and telling them to go out and get involved. They're already involved.
I hope to say that we've got some non-voter listeners. Hopefully we can convince them to vote. I also hope to say that we have some Liberal and Green Party visitors. Them too. That all of those people, whether it's not just NDPers, Liberals, Greens, get out there, do the work, build your riding association, make it into a functioning political machine. Not to make it impersonal, but to make sure that we don't end up with the worst of the impersonal, being the Conservative machine, and then none of us get represented except for a few corporate CEOs and people who love that bullshit system of trickle-down economics, right? I mean, isn't that what the whole goal is? Exactly. Yeah, and like you said, man, it's time to get ready right now. I mean, it's time to get active. It's time to resist this government. It's time to fight to prevent the loss of our freedoms as our constitutional rights are under siege by a far-right government. It's time to activate the peace movement in this country before we wind up at war with Iran. It's time to start educating ourselves and learn something about fractional reserve banking, how our central bank works, how our government debt works, how the 3 pillars of our financial world have been merged into one pillar called the banking system.
Ultimately, I guess it's about responsibility, taking responsibility back. It would we're not by supporting opposition parties, we're not saying let's just let the politicians work it out.
Yeah.
The only way that we can really do this is that if we start to work it out and we take responsibility for these different things.
Your duty as a citizen in a democracy does not consist of simply stumbling into the polls and voting according to how you feel like voting, right?
That's right.
It's your duty to inform yourself to promote the ideas that you believe in. Be vigilant. You know, while a government is operating between elections, you don't want to be asleep at the wheel while they do crazy shit like get us into wars and you know, compromise our constitutional rights. You know, it's your duty to be on top of that as a citizen. It's not just about stumbling into the polls and voting once every 4 years. You have rights and you have obligations that go with those rights. It's just my thing. And this is September 11th, 2012, Mike. We have marked this occasion by wishing for peace. We discussed the impending war with Iran. I expressed my abject frustration with my fellow citizens that people don't do more. People don't get more angry. People don't get more educated. People don't get more active. And do something about this shit.
Exactly. It's that old saying, you know, if you can do something or put it off, it's always better to do it now, because it's too easy to put it off, and you'll always put it off. And that's what this political responsibility is about. Just all you have to do is set aside, a little bit of time to dedicate towards making your life and your friends' life and your family's life and your children's life better. And you know, we may disagree, but as long as we start a dialogue and we talk, and we dedicate ourselves to this, any government we have will be forced to be more responsible.